I'm just happy Brentley had good things to say about an edge rusher that doesn't have speed and bend. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you know we're gone.
We're kind of on the edge of our seat. Like, we all knew it. Nobody said it, but we're just waiting.
To my defense, it's all relative. You know, we're talking about a guy, you know, got an 84 on him, you know, not an 87. So,
Gents, I want to talk about George Karlaftis, defensive end out of Purdue. It's a really interesting case study. 6'4", 266, 32 and 5/8 on the arms. So he's meeting all those thresholds, right? He came onto the scene as a freshman in 2019 and really had an explosive freshman season. 2020 was quiet. It was an abbreviated year. There were some injuries that he had to deal with. But then he came back with a vengeance again this year. When you guys profile power rushers like this, we talk about transitioning to the NFL level. How does George Karlaftis' style of play, in your guys' mind, set him up to be somebody who can make an impact early on for an NFL team?
well, I mean, we've seen pass rushers in today's NFL have success without necessarily being able to win around the edge with speed and bend and flexibility. I think of a guy like Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals, who primarily wins with kind of that relentless motor and that power. That's kind of where I see George Karlaftis fitting into the NFL. I mean, this is a guy who's really densely built. Talk about a very strong upper body in terms of his arms and his hands and his torso and his ability to throw offensive tackles around and really just shock him with his hands and power. I mean, this is a powerful dude. And for me, it's his motor and his hand technique. You know, that he can really rush in a variety of ways. Outstanding technician, just relentless coming off the edge. He gets a lot of second late in the down production.
Yeah.
Because he's just so relentless. And so for a guy who, yeah, you wish he was a little more flexible around the arc, and you wish he maybe had a little more kind of speed around the edge, he can still get to the quarterback. It just comes in a different way.
I think about his path to success, and while he may be good rushing from, I guess, the edge position, why not kick him inside where he can really use the athletic traits and overwhelm those interior offensive linemen? Like I would think about putting him at 3-tech because he's not far off from being that size, right? We talk about how densely built he is. He has a strong upper body. He has a thick lower body, and he's explosive. That sounds like a good interior defensive lineman to me, and I think he could potentially be a 8 to 10 sack guy from that interior defensive line position, which the Rams have showed us, right? That can be a very important position to be able to get pressure on a quarterback because that's the quickest path to the quarterback.
So let me ask you this. How often would you ideally play in there? Because some people will probably hear that and say, you're going to move this guy to 3-tech full-time. Is he there passing downs and you're going to play him outside on early downs? It's kind of that base end to turn stuff inside. Like, I just would love to hear you kind of expand on that vision for Karlaftis, because I'm sure some people hear that and they'll have more questions than answers about, like, what did Keith mean by that?
Yeah, what I mean, and it's a testament to Karlaftis, right? I think sometimes when you look at it and you be like, reducing a guy inside, it's like, oh, well, he's not a good edge rusher. What I'm saying is this. I think this guy has a lot of untapped potential at being an interior defensive lineman. Like, I think he can be a really good interior defensive lineman. I'm not moving him there because I can't find a spot for him on the edge. What I'm saying is his athletic traits lends itself to him being a dominant interior defensive lineman. So as far as percentage-wise, would I put him, compared to outside to inside, if he shows that he's really good at it, then go be a pro bowler doing that. Like, I'm not going to waste my time doing it. And I think there's a real path to success for that.
I'm just happy Brentley had good things to say about an edge rusher that doesn't have speed and bend. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you know we're gone.
We're kind of on the edge of our seat. Like, we all knew it. Nobody said it, but we're just waiting.
To my defense, it's all relative. We're talking about a guy, got an 84 on him, not an 87. So, let me just say that.
Okay, all right, there's the wet blanket we were looking for. Yeah, I think that's the thing is he doesn't give you bend and burst, but he does give you power and the ability to reduce angles and soften angles and power through. The motor's unbelievable, and I mean this guy just gets after it. He plays with a lot of urgency in everything that he does, and I appreciate that. And I mean, like you said, a lot of production late in the down, and I think that really is a testament to his power and how hard he works, and that he does have some linear explosiveness about him. And so there's a path for Karlaftis. I mean, there are a few things missing from the overall skill set, but still a guy that I think has a lot of upward mobility to continue to work and get better and become more diverse in the way he wins as a pass rusher. And I think that's all there for him to take a big step at the next level.
And I mean, when you talk about him as an edge rusher, like what Keith was talking about, possibly kicking him inside, if you do want him to affect the passer on the edge, I would think to give him a shorter arc to run around. Give him that kind of tighter, condensed split when it comes down to his destination or his location to the outside tackle, where he's right there on that shoulder where he wins quick and it's a short path to turn and get right to the quarterback rather than, like a wide angle rusher where it's like, okay, you got to run the wider arc to get around. So he's going to be violent in the run game, and that's where he's going to really make his money on early downs.
I'm glad the conversation brought up playing on the inside to some degree, because one of the names that came to mind for him was Justin Smith. I don't know if you guys remember Justin Smith, but Cincinnati and San Francisco, and his evolution as a player gradually took him inside, and he added a little bit more mass to his frame versus when he came out. And Karlaftis at the Combine, 266, I don't think he's that far away from taking a week off of cardio and being 278, 280, right? And if that's the case, then he can be a B-gap defender. And whether that's in an odd front or if that's in an even front and you want to have a underweight Sam linebacker walked up outside of him to kind of protect your outside leverage and work with him in that capacity, I think there's a lot of flexibility in ways that you could go if you want to try and keep him here in the 260s, or if you want to have him try to be that inside shade defensive end on an offensive tackle too.
Yeah.
He's an interesting case study because for a guy who wins with power and hand usage and effort and maybe lacks some of that elite bend and flexibility, I actually think he's better at rushing the passer than stopping the run, which is interesting for me.
I would agree.
And so because normally it's the opposite, right? Some of the elite benders, some of the guys who have that explosive first step
Can't anchor.
Yeah. And so for Karlaftis, I need to see him anchor a little better in the point of attack against the run game. And he has the powerful upper body, and he has such strong and violent hands where, to me, he just needs to get a little more muscular in his lower half to kind of match that upper body strength before I start to consider putting him inside full time, because I think, double team blocks, guards would have their way with him.
Well, and I think it's the fact that his hands have so much pop, it creates this certain expectation on how his entire point of attack play is going to go, right? Because you see the jolt, you see the head and shoulders on offensive linemen come up when that first contact is there and he's got the first strike. You see how well he's really able to create knockback and win initially when guys have quick set him or when that first contact is there and they're moving in space. But I generally agree with you in that building out that component of his game, I think, is ultimately going to be a bigger deciding factor in where his full-time role is as compared to what he can give you off the edge from a pass rush perspective. Because you see a lot of power rushers that can reduce those angles instead of having to play around that body, and they have success. And I like that Trey Hendrickson name that was invoked here as well, as a guy who is doing really well for himself in the NFL today. But we'll see what George Karlaftis, where his landing spot is both in the draft and on the field. Early second round grade for us here at TDN.